in it.
Yeah, well, let's sit next to each other, man. Today we have Frankie Ruiz. We'll start with a dap. We'll get to a hug later. But Frankie, I love you, man. You're a legend in Miami, and I'll never forget before I moved to Miami when I was looking at the pictures of the Nike Run Club, and I love run clubs. I've always been part of them for years, and to see that many people running together was just like, wow. I was like, I'm going to make so many friends. And then, of course, I moved right like before or during COVID. So we had to wait. We had to wait for this. This is long overdue. But I think a lot of people in Miami look up to you, and you inspire a lot of people. Started the Miami Marathon. But I love to kind of just go back and find out how you became so passionate about running. So where were you born?
Right here, man.
Right here?
Miami.
305?
Miami. I'm real Miami. I was born at Mercy Hospital. So in kind of area of Coconut Grove.
Coconut Grove?
Yeah.
Nice.
And I never left Miami for more than, I think the longest I've ever been gone was 3 weeks for my honeymoon.
You said you'd never leave the 305. That's what you said somewhere,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I never.
Only for a honeymoon?
That's it. I'll sync with the city.
The wife didn't want to do a staycation?
No. So yeah, I tried to convince her. The one thing I did tell her, I was like, we're not going anywhere cold. So we went somewhere warm for a honeymoon. But no, I've lived here my whole life, and I was born and raised in the 305, as they say.
Okay, and so were you like kind of jumping out of the womb, running all over the hospital, or like what's the story of you loving running?
No. Not at all. Not that I know of. No, I started running probably was about 10 years old. Dad asked me to go on a run with him and a friend. Or didn't ask me, he just kind of said, I'm going on a run. I said, I'll join you, and kind of never looked back after that. I was like, this is cool. Feel like you own your own outcome, your own performance, as they say. You can train yourself, and you don't need to depend on somebody to tell you come off the bench. And I kind of like that. It was like feeling of independence, a feeling of control, and yeah.
Nice. So were you doing cross country as a kid in school?
I did. Yeah, I did cross country. I was the weird kid that liked to run laps at PE. Then that kind of evolved into eventually being part of a formal cross country team, and then obviously track, and now as an adult, run clubs and marathons and everything in between. So, yeah, it was just I not that I didn't play any other sport. I played every other sport. There was football, basketball, soccer. I did them all, but there was something about running that I knew was going to be with me for a long time, and I stuck to it.
So yeah.
And I wasn't. Full disclosure to everybody, I wasn't all that great at it, but I knew I had the keys to getting better, and just knowing that kept me in the sport.
Interesting. So did you end up running? I know you went to FIU, right?
I did, man. I walked on. I always wanted to tell my kids I was a collegiate athlete, and so I walked on just to see what that was like at FIU. And for those that don't know, FIU, it's one of the largest public universities in the country, and I did about 2 years worth of track there. I did the 800, I did high jump. I actually competed in a few meets, so as a walk-on, and yeah, the rest is something 20 years from now I can say I did college track.
Okay. And then out of school, what did you study at school?
So I studied public relations, kind of known as communications, back for my bachelor's, and then decided I was gonna do my master's immediately. So I jumped into trying to do an MBA, and I just said this is not for me. So I jumped out of the MBA program and I jumped right into an MPA, which is a master's in public administration. It's basically the same as a business administration master's, but minus the numbers. Numbers weren't my best friend, so I wanted somewhere that I would be a little social and meet some folks along the way, and the MPA seemed to draw more of that. So I even taught a semester at FIU while I was doing my master's, and enjoyed public administration. I just had this draw to politics, to government work, parks, anything having to deal with government entity. And so I thought that that's where I was going to end up at some point. So that's why I chose public administration.
Yeah. And so what was like your first job out of there?
So out of there, actually, I didn't have a first job out of there. I've been working as long as I can remember. Took in all sorts of odds and end jobs. I started a small business where I did vending machines. I had 100 locations. I was doing really well, so I didn't need like a regular nine to five. But I did a bunch of internships. I did an internship with a few local elected officials. I did an internship with a PR agency, and just never said no to anything that came my way. And that's kind of where I started with the mantra of don't stop, which is basically you got invited to something, you got an opportunity to do something, I would just say yes at that age. Now I'm a little older and I have family and a little less time on my hands, but in that I bumped into more or less what I'm doing now.
Yeah, so I guess let's start with that. Were you doing these jobs and then you just had what was the idea where you started the marathon?
So going back to running specifically, I had two things running still going in my life during my master's, and one of those was coaching. I knew while I ran in high school that I wanted to be a coach one day. Not that I wasn't one of those guys there, I can do this better. On the contrary, I was like, I want to do what he's doing. Like I was always drawn to my high school coach in that manner. So I started as an assistant coach, and I was helping at the middle school level, and I was just in that world of running, cross country and track and field. And then adjacent to that, or running sort of parallel to that, I was trying to figure out how to produce races. So I produced my first 5K. I was probably 18, 19 years old. Did that in the neighborhood with a couple hundred people, and then from there, I don't remember exactly how, but I linked up with an Italian group that was putting on a fitness festival in South Beach, and I said, this is awesome. Like, events is where I want to live, what I want to do, and I just was drawn to the idea of bringing a group of people together for a healthy, and experience, if that's what you want to call it, and through that I bumped into the idea, and I say bumped into because it's kind of a crazy story, and I know we have an hour, so I don't want to take too long on it, but it was one of those things that the right question was asked at the right moment, why the Miami Marathon didn't exist, or why Miami didn't have a marathon, and I just so happened to be in that room, and with the help of many, this wasn't anything by any stretch my own alone doing. We started to put together the idea of bringing a marathon back to Miami, because in the 70s and 80s, distance running here in South Florida existed, and in fact it was called the Orange Bowl Marathon. Just never really got the wheels. I mean, they laid the foundation, but never really got the wheels that it needed to sustain itself through, through 20 years like we are here now with the Miami Marathon. So, that was 2003, started the marathon, quickly built up my agency with two other partners of race production, and created some events from scratch, in a city that doesn't look like it looks now, but nonetheless it was still a city. It was a major, what I would call one of the major cities without a true marathon to call of its own. And so it wasn't easy to pull off that first year, to say we're going to shut down 26.2 miles of roads. This may ring a bell to you. You're darn young, but the movie Bad Boys.
Yeah.
So now everybody knows Bad Boys, right? Because of Will Smith, I guess. So Bad Boys was filming in Miami, and it caused all sorts of chaos on the MacArthur Causeway because they shut down the MacArthur for hours. And here I was a few months after this, going to the city and saying I'm going to shut it down again. So it was an interesting time to be asking
good
for
boys.
permission. Yeah, right. Yeah, those were the bad boys. Now we're the good boys. That's a good way to put it. So we put this this idea before the city and both cities, the city of Miami, Miami Beach, and with the help of friends, mayor back then, Mayor Manny Diaz, Mayor Pinellas, which is a mayor in the county, and the mayor of Miami Beach, as well as some commissioners. They all kind of came together and helped us with that first edition, 2003.
Yeah, and you just pick up the phone and call these people, or you were really connected in government already?
No, man. I like goes back to like my beginnings. I worked a bunch of political campaigns. I wasn't partisan back then. Partisan politics really, as far as I could see, weren't as divisive. So it was okay to work for, a Democrat that was running for office. It was okay to work for a Republican. I worked for some names that are still around. I hesitate to say them because everyone gets, all cited right away. But I worked for them because I just enjoyed the idea of knocking on doors. I enjoyed the idea of following a leader, in this case, a politician. And so I worked, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 different campaigns. So in that, you meet a lot of these gatekeepers of a city, and just kind of built my network from there. No keys were given to me as far as like here's my dad was in an unrelated business. He was a sales man for Procter & Gamble, so he didn't give me the keys to political doors. I went to a relatively well-known high school here, Belen Jesuit High School. So yeah, that provided some entry, but the rest of it really was just meeting and building relationships and caring for other people's time and sort of so that helped me build this credibility when I did have to call somebody and sell them on this idea, whether it was a Commissioner Sally Heyman, Commissioner Diaz, all these different folks that for me were on pedestals because, and they still are, a lot of these folks, because I grew up reading the Miami Herald and really diving hard into just knowing every little inch I could find about the city. For me, it wasn't, I was calling, a 20-year-old punk calling some of these.
How old were you at this time?
I was 20.
You were 20 when you started the marathon?
Yeah, 20. Let's see, I'm 43 now, so the marathon just turned 20, so I was 22, 21.
Oh, wow.
But the initial plans were at 21, I would say. I don't drink, but I wasn't old enough to drink, so that should tell you something how young I was. But yeah, man, I was a kid. Yeah, not to knock any.
Had you run a marathon before?
So I had. I actually did the Disney marathon. Disney marathon, did the Disney half marathon, and I can't say I loved the idea of running a marathon, but I liked the spectacle. I liked everything that it entailed. Personally, I learned a lot from running my first few races. Even though I thought I knew it all, the races I was running were 5Ks and 800 meters and cross-country distances and so forth. So, yeah, of course I can do a half marathon. Of course, but I don't care who you are. Most young runners that ran in high school and jumped straight into a marathon or half always have that first bad experience, and mine was.
Oh yeah, so a wake up call.
Yeah, yeah. So
there's a reason like a lot of the professionals peak around in the later years, for distance running. It takes some serious mental strength, and I'd say it's almost like overcoming boredom, but like.
True.
I guess the older you get, the more your attention span is longer, and you can like put up with it.
Yeah.
Do you have any secrets? Any marathon tips?
Any secrets? Man, it's really about time on your feet, right? Like, the more time you spend running, just the better you end up getting at controlling what happens to you when you run, right? You build this long-term aerobic conditioning that allows you to or aerobic fitness rather, that allows you to sustain running at a certain level. So if I were telling anybody how to train for a race at either a young age or even later on in their life, is look at it, a little longer than just that next race, or just 16 weeks out or a few months out. Like, really think about developing your fitness through a longer term. I think that way you're not going to take it as a bucket list item. You're not going to take it as a one and done, just get out of the way. You might make it part of your life, and you might be like this recent guy that crossed the Miami Marathon finish line, or half marathon finish line at 91 years old. Like that's where I want to be. He had a ton of joy, legs were still able. His lungs obviously are amazing. That's what I would give someone advice now, is just look at it as something that you can do forever, not something you can do next week or next month or whatever.
Yeah. So are you you're still running marathons yourself?
I haven't done one. I haven't done one since New York, a little bit before COVID. So I might pick one this year. I think things are settled in again, so I might have some time to train. Maybe one of the big. I like to do the big city ones just because I can relate. Not necessarily, I can't relate to New York where they're at 50,000, but meaning everything that goes into those races, a lot of that happens at ours. So
it's like research, market research a bit.
Yeah, it's market research, and then we have a lot of friends in the industry, so I get to see what they're producing. So that's this is a fun fact for you. So the race director of the New York City Marathon right now is a guy named Ted Metellus, and he actually worked here in Miami with us in our office as our race director for about a year and a half. So we have a connection to New York's marathon, which is arguably the pinnacle and the greatest race on earth, as they say.
What about the Boston Marathon?
I think Boston's great, but Boston's more about the sort of the quality in the field, and you have to qualify for. Whereas New York is sort of like, by lottery, so anybody can say anybody, but it's open to everyone without qualification. So New York's size is what I'm referring to.
Right.
Is something everybody strives to be, whether you're Chicago or London or some of these races. Everyone's sort of kind of using New York as a measuring stick.
Yeah. So what's something about like designing a marathon? Like, what's one of the like challenges like that you wouldn't think of, or that surprised you?
I mean, it gives you an appreciation, and it's a love-hate kind of thing for government. You realize all the layers that exist in our modern society, whether it's city, state, federal, local associations, bids, and all these smaller entities that exist. So I kind of was surprised by that. Even though I had studied it all, it's different when you kind of read about it in a book or learn about it from a college professor, and then you actually have to go down the layers and permit or apply for a permit for your events. So that I would say it was one of the surprises. The other surprise was how much we put on our police officers in a city environment. These off-duty officers are like the backbone of your event, and to say that you can pull off one of these monsters without them is nonsense. So that was another surprise on how I was going to have to establish a relationship with all these police officers, which that also caught me not by surprise, but it was just kind of one of those like, wow, this is going to be a big part of my job, is being friends with these guys. And my first meeting with them, I remember as if it were yesterday, where it was like, oh my gosh, I'm dealing with a group at the time that didn't even know what a marathon was, right? It's like, and back 20 years ago, marathoning wasn't as widely, the word's not accepted, but as widely understood as it was after Boston or after Oprah did New York, or P. Diddy did New York. I think now it's a little easier when you tell somebody a marathon, they're like, oh yeah, that's that long race.
Yeah, everyone knows somebody who's done one.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't know the exact distance, but that's okay. But when I went to my first meeting, they're like, 26.2 miles. Like, why would anybody, and it was
What's
like
the
that kind of conversation. And so I was like, oh my gosh, these guys are a position of authority. They don't care. They don't understand it. And now I'm best friends with all those guys now, which is pretty cool.
Have some of them run? Have you inspired some?
Yeah, man. Yeah, actually, along the way, that's what's cool too. Like, one of the coolest things about what I see at finish lines is that the guys who told you that running wasn't cool, or I shouldn't say it like that, that maybe played another sport and didn't see running as like the cool thing, they end up crossing your finish lines, right? Like they end up because, and to no fault of their own. Like, when's the last, if, let's say you played football, right? I don't know, what sport did you play?
I was soccer, lacrosse, soccer.
Okay, so even soccer and lacrosse, right? Like soccer, probably, especially in Miami, you can get away with calling some friends and saying, hey, let's go kick the ball around. But if you played football or lacrosse, it'd be like, call your friends up when you're 20-something or 30-something or 40-something and be like, hey, get your sticks, let's go play. They're going to be like, same thing for football, right? You're not going to tell somebody, hey, get your pads on, let's go. You might throw a flag football game here and there, but it's not something you're going to do forever. So I think as we get into adult life, we're like, what sports can I do that are still like giving me a good bang for my buck, exercise-wise, helps me maintain my weight. All those boxes get checked off. Running tends to be one of those, we know there's a few others, but I think running, biking, swimming, well, swimming's not as social, but when you think of like social activities where you can call a group of friends and be like, hey, let's go do this. You can think of mountain biking, you can think of running, you can think of obviously playing golf to a certain extent. Basketball's a little hard, man.
Because the courts are full a lot of places, man. It's hard to. I mean, you can go with some friends and play pickup, but and that's fun to do.
I think basketball's a great example. I mean, my dad still likes to go shoot around, and he used to take me to courts. But the thing with basketball is that there does become an age where it's just like dangerous to do, right? Like, you can go shoot around, but when you really get into like a pickup game at 55, 60 years old, you're running the risk of having to visit the urgent care that night, So yeah, but look, I think going back to the original point on this, I think the cool thing about showing running to so many people, especially at a young age, it's something they can pick up regardless of their income, regardless of their place in the world. You can run anywhere. You don't need a nice court or a nice field or whatnot. You can just go out and run outside your hotel room, outside of your apartment. So that's why I believe in it. It's not that I'm such a fan. I mean, I love the sport and I follow it and so forth, but it's more so because I understand how accessible it is to the world, that it's worth telling that story and introducing it.
Yeah, it's one of the most minimal things you can do, and probably the most. Because like for me, triathlons, I did a few triathlons, but I always spent more time in like the changing area than like in the ocean. Like I'm just like not in a hurry to get out of the wetsuit. I'm just like, oh my god, it just like it becomes the whole like fashion show, and like you got your bike, and it's like there's nothing more minimal than running, And so I think
I agree.
There's a lot of room to grow as a human race with that.
Yeah.
And having more fun with it,
Yeah.
So considering the Miami Marathon, like what percentage of people are actually from Miami? How many visitors do we get doing it?
So we do about 67, it's gone up a tick or two, but about 67, 68% of the whole field of runners comes from outside Miami-Dade County, which means that they have outside of Miami-Dade County. So which means that either they have a really early morning drive, like maybe driving in from Palm Beach or something, or they spend the night. We do, I don't know, probably close to 20,000 room nights happen that span of the week. People from all over the world. Latin America is one of our biggest draws. Or we draw from Latin America the most. The Northeast is big. As far as countries are concerned, Colombia is still at the top of our list with well over 1,000. Mexico is pretty big. Costa Rica, Guatemala, Ecuador, Canada. So all these places call warmer climates for their destination races, such as Miami during January. So that's why we end up pulling it. So
and that brings a lot of a lot of money to the city, right?
It does.
I think
It
you
does.
quantified that.
It does, man, and so we've obviously had several studies done, and some estimates have come in well over 10 million, some near over 20. It all depends how you measure the indirect and direct impact, but I think I used to talk a lot about the economic impact, and that it resonated obviously with certain leadership in the community, but I since then, since realizing that it's a little bit more impactful, I think, or I shouldn't say impactful, but a little more of a more defining moment for the city to have an event like this as a sense of pride, as a sense of health and fitness as a priority. I prefer to talk about that more than I talk about the economic heads and beds, as they say. Because listen, any event, whether it's an ultra concert or Sobe Wine and Food Festival or they all have economic impact. There's no doubt. But there's, I think, something special about an event such as this one that brings the locals and the out-of-towners together in a healthy manner. And so that impact to me is great. And I think down the road, anytime you go run in a city and you experience it from the ground, at sort of eye level and not behind a wheel, you're just gonna have a different relationship with that city, and you may come back and open up your business here, or you may come back here, go to school here. You may come back here and vacation here. So the impact. That's why I say, like, the impact. Yes, there's a finite, I'm sure, measurement that as accurate as you can possibly make it on the dollars that weekend. But I prefer to talk about, okay, did we extend the lives of folks? Did we bring them back to the city later on? Did we establish a connection with them where they have this affinity to Miami for years to come? That's more important to me.
Yeah, and so is there anything about running in Miami that that people don't know? Or is there anything, I know the climate is very tough in the summers. Is there anything that you've noticed about running in Miami?
And I've noticed, I think it's changed throughout the years, that people are a little more encouraged and open themselves to run in other places where, sort of, as they say, running doesn't belong or running hasn't belonged. There's groups now running in the urban parts of the city. There are folks running out in the suburbs. There's folks going out to the Everglades. There's folks that have their tried and true, every Saturday long run on Bayshore. But then there's these sort of pockets that now we're seeing people run in different places, and I think that's what's been cool about Miami, that because we don't have a great trail system, so it's not like people are out, pounding the same, trails, or this is in Portland where they're running the forest trails. This is Forest Park trails. This is still kind of a wide open canvas that you can go and run. I don't know, one day run down the Miami River, another day run through Little Havana, another day go down to Homestead and run through the Redlands or whatnot. So I still think that there's a lot to explore on foot. If you mention the word secret or what else, I keep bringing up, I've said it twice already, so I'll say it a third time, the Everglades, man. Like, the Everglades for me is like one of those places that is still yet to be fully discovered. I don't think it'll ever be understood, because everyone goes out there like, what is this?
And it's spread out.
Yeah, but the Everglades to me is.
Will you ever start a trail run in the
Everglades? I've done a couple. I've had a couple out there. I've taken some folks out in school buses. We've taken the run clubs out to experience an area inside of the Everglades National Park, and to me that's one of my favorite things to do. Is just, like, you've got people that have lived here 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, and they've never stepped foot on a trail in the Everglades. They've driven through it. They've on their way to Naples, or they've come close to it when they go to Homestead. But a lot of folks have never truly experienced one of the coolest things we have here.
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, I've been on like the speedboats or whatever.
The airboats. You mean the airboats? Yeah, which is cool. That's one way to experience it. But to go out there and and experience this it's vast, it's big, area where most of our drinking water gets deposited and affects so much of the Gulf of Mexico, and so much of our bay is affected by this, this national park, and never have stepped foot in it. I tell people, I'm like, man, you're still not a full Miamian. Like, this is part of.
All right, where should people go? Where's like the destination in the Google Maps? Like,
so I would go down to Ernest Coe Visitor Center, which is down in Homestead. It's probably, and that's the other thing, how close it is. It's probably about 45 minutes from downtown Miami. I mean, you just spent 45
that's
minutes.
That's an occasion, though. That's an occasion. I mean, most people run outside of their house. It's like it's quite an occasion. I think more clubs sponsoring those trips. I think that's great.
Yeah. No. Listen, you obviously need that nudge, but if you want to explore something, I would say you go down to the main entrance, down in the Homestead entrance, and unfortunately it's gotten a little pricey. It's like $30 per car, so take a car filled with people, or buy the annual pass. I think it's like $55 for the annual, and then you keep coming back. I don't recommend it in August. I don't recommend it in June, July, August, even most of September. So the other 8-9 months of the year, it's heaven out there. I think it's great. The mosquitoes are not as bad or bad at all. I was there last weekend, and there was nothing going on down there as far as bugs. But you'll go down there. There's a trail, one of my favorites, called Long Pine Key, inside of a campground that has I think it's close to 14 miles worth of leveled, good footing trails, and then another nice trails to go all the way to Flamingo, which is, there's another fun fact for people: the southernmost point in mainland U.S. is actually in a place called East Cape. It's the southernmost point. It's not Key West
because it curves a little bit.
It kind of curves out a bit. It's hard to get to, but we made it a crazy group of runners out there. It involved a little bit of treading through some water and swimming a little, but you can actually run a trail that leads to this. That's perfectly blazed for about 5 miles, to a spot called Clubhouse Beach, and that's awesome. Like, that's you want to experience like raw South Florida. That's raw South Florida, and tons of history down there. So those are two spots I put in somebody's box.
Yeah, if we have any runners listening,
I hope you have at least.
I think most people are runners.
and listen, and by the way, one thing I will say about that is that there's no official definition for when you are a runner. Let's put. I had a meeting this morning with somebody, and like, oh, I'm not really a runner. I'm like,
I know,
there's not an official definition for being a runner. You don't get certified to be a runner after a certain amount of runs. You don't get a shirt that says I'm a runner after a certain race. That's bullcrap. Like, you don't
have you
have
ever
to
run before?
Yeah, look. Phil Knight says it best, right? On for Nike, he says, if you've got a body, you're an athlete. Same principle to running, right? You've got a body, you can call yourself a runner. But to be a runner, you have to run a little bit. So we'll put that, as the only requirement.
Couch to 5K. I mean, what would you say to somebody who's run some 5Ks, but like, what would you say to someone to motivate them to do their first marathon?
I'd say go to a marathon first. Like, actually physically go to one, right? There aren't many free live sporting events, and marathoning is one of those. Like, professional athletes will cross the finish line first, and then the one place where they actually get to play on the same field is a marathon. So if your local city or your local big city marathon or half marathon, just go there. And the reason I say is, besides cheering or just standing there to show support for these athletes, as they all are, you're going to see somebody that looks like you, I promise you. And you're going to see somebody that you're going to identify with, and you're like, all right, that guy kind of looks like me, or you know what, he's a little taller than me, and if that guy can do it, I can do it too, or whatnot. And that's one place to start. And then the second thing is probably, I don't know, just call a friend. Like, everybody has one friend that has run, and if you don't, you got to be that friend. You got to be the one that becomes a runner.
Yeah, you got to demystify it, and then also, expose yourself a bit gradually. And the more you join run clubs where you're around people who've done them before, it becomes less of a scary thing, right? It's like, oh yeah, my friend John, like he ran one last month. Like yeah, people joining these groups, and that's why, and we'll get to that. It's so powerful. I think we'll put away marathons for a little bit. I actually did the Chicago Marathon, and
You had a bad experience?
no, it's just my joy peaks at a half marathon. God, I love half marathons.
Good distance.
It's just like I can run a half marathon like any morning, after a good meal. It's just like the full, just the pain. The joy was gone when my foot started bleeding. I think the last mile, and then no, it was like the last 2 miles, and then of course in Chicago they're always handing you like ridiculous treats, like Jägermeister or what's the other one that they drink over there? But absinthe, or just anyway. Like at one point I was so. I had no more fuel in me, and I didn't like fuel properly probably, but like I must have had like 5 bananas in a row, and you have no idea, like that doesn't feel great. Like
no. I hope you at least peeled them, right? Then
I didn't eat the skin, but I'd say it was very humbling, and my dad's a little bummed I didn't beat his time, but I'm like, Dad, that's great for you. Like you also did Ironmans, and I don't know if I really care enough to do that, but I love balance. So
it's good.
I have my balance is like 20K a week. I do a 5K myself with like house music that I love, and that's something that I think more people need to realize is, on one hand, there's the 5K social with friends where you really bond with people, and it's amazing, and we're in the best city in the world for that with run clubs. And there's also like the kind of endorphin and high you get when you run to like your favorite music, and in the morning, like before work or something. Like I don't know, I guess I was reading I'm finally reading this book that's like in my room where I do the podcast. Usually it's Talk Like TED, right? Mm-hmm. Finally I'm reading it, and anyway, it hit on the page last night. It was about like how to motivate people, and it's like there's ethos, logos, and pathos, right? So ethos is like your credibility, right? So, Frankie, you got tons of credibility in Miami. Logos is like can you motivate people with statistics about like, like if you run 3 times a week, you're less likely to get, heart disease, or like, is that really going to motivate people? I don't know. But the last one is pathos, and that's like your passion, right? So I think, how can we motivate more runners? We have to show them how fun it is, and like they're missing out on that high, and so like, what would you say is a way we can get more people to experience that high? And I guess challenging more of the run club members to invite friends, or like do kind of prizes on that. Like, how many friends did you invite today? Like, that could be a fun little thing. Like, whoever brings the most friends gets this prize.
We can do that.
Let's try that.
We can do
that.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say that one way to motivate others is to realize that you have a ton of power. Like we have more power than we've ever had, and what I mean by that is you have this power to motivate others just by telling other people you're doing something, and social media provides that. And there's, it sounds like I'm talking about something that people don't know is already obvious, but when folks go out to something like a run club and they go out and run, a lot of folks see that as something they did for themselves. But what they don't realize is that by them doing that, they're either motivating somebody that's already there, like, meaning, shit, he's doing it, I'm doing it, we're kind of in a group here, it doesn't feel awkward, we're all together, we're doing this. That's one way. But then there are others that are sitting at home that are like, you know what, if John is running, I think I can do it next week. Just going back to my point about going to a race and getting inspired by others, you have this power to actually inspire others just by doing it. Somebody, you don't have to say anything. Just let it come to you. Like, somebody's going to come up to you eventually. One of your friends, one of your neighbors, one of your cousins or whatnot is going to come like, hey, let's go for a run. Or you may be able to say it to them after you realize that they've started to pick up on some form of aerobic exercise, like running. I don't know. I don't think it requires as much selling as people think, but there does need to be some sort of, you use the word demystify. There has to be some demystification of this idea that running is something that is a punishment, that's something that is laborious and it's supposed to feel like crap, and it does. If anybody thinks that, they got to come to one of the run clubs at right when it's over. They can see that people are not like hating what they just did. Like they say, like you're never gonna regret a run, right? Like after you're done, you see everyone, you're like, all right, this doesn't seem like it was that bad. Yeah, of course there's a little bit of pain and some sweating and so forth, but it's not as bad as it may have been when you were a kid and they punished you using running. Or your PE coach used it.
Right, and I think you guys, we'll get to the story of it, but just for anyone out there, like the Nike Run Clubs, there's so many pace groups that you don't have to ever be self-conscious about your pace. I mean, you can literally walk it if you really want to. So like, you don't even have to have shoes. And I've had friends who say, Simeon, I've never actually felt comfortable in a pair of running shoes. Like I never found one that worked for my feet. Yeah. What would you say to those people?
You gotta keep trying shoes.
I know, you gotta keep trying.
Because man, these companies have all figured out all the different foot types and so forth, and you got shoes that kind of form more to your foot type now than ever. Like before, maybe have been a bit harder. There was a lot of debate about pronating and supinating and neutral and this and that, and most of the brands have sort of figured out that some folks are not looking to get that technical about their footwear. That being said, there has been some significant advances in shoes and just providing comfort and performance at the same time. So whoever says that they haven't, they found a shoe that works for them, they haven't tried hard enough. They haven't, it's just like a car. There's 10 different manufacturers that are all providing some shoe that's gonna, some model that's gonna work for you. You just gotta go to. It's one of the last industries that still has stores.
I know, because they're all dying out.
Yeah, and so go support them, because usually it's your local mom and pops. And,
do you have one at some point?
I'm part owner of one called Go Run. I've been in one way or another in the shoe business for a better part of the last 7-8 years, and yeah, the cool thing about these shoe stores is you go and you try on shoes. It's like going to a dealer, right? You test drive a car. Well, now you can do the same with your shoes. And most of the shoe companies are pretty darn generous with returns. They encourage the returns in some cases. Like Nike will say you got 60 days to give back your shoes. I mean, so if by 50 days you haven't figured out the shoe's not good for you, you got a different problem. But yeah, you got to go get fitted, go support local business, and I would say treat yourself to a good pair of shoes. Don't just kind of online shop because the colors are nice.
I have like a minimalist shoe that I love. Like
what are you running?
Asics made these things called the Kanmai. With they're the lightest shoe you can find, and they're just like really minimal. And unfortunately, they don't make them anymore, so I have to like order them from eBay anytime they pop up somewhere. Last time I was like in Germany, and I had to like pay twice as much. But like, I don't know. I love the minimalism, so I was a big like free run guy, but I got to work with one of these brands on a Simba shoe, because like I can't find this one anymore, man. They've all become so like over flowery, and like there's just like so many, because there's like thousands of engineers working on shoe technology. It's like I'm kind of back to the whole Born to Run book mentality, which I love, and I'm sure you read that. Yeah. But
well, look, I and this might be another sort of longevity tip. Is vary your shoe surface or your running surface, and shoes will be less of an issue. What I mean by that is, yes, some of us only live in concrete jungles, but it takes a little bit of driving sometimes to find a little bit of grass or a little bit of a trail or gravel somewhere, and that's where you can use these minimalist shoes to there's no end, because it's softer on the body. A little less lessening that impact from every stride, but I'm with you. Like I don't like heavy shoes. I don't like a whole lot of cushion in my shoe. I'm into can't say I'm all the way. My pendulum hasn't swung all the way over, but I do enjoy that feeling of almost feeling the ground.
Feeling the ground, like having your toes like kind of like feel the feedback.
Sure.
Sometimes some of these shoes, like your toes completely stop like feeling anything.
Yeah.
And so like your foot doesn't brace for the impact as much, or.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we're not going to go into. I'm sure there's like running podcasts out there where you can talk shoe technology for hours. But well, let's get to the story of the Baptist Health Nike Run Clubs. Like, when did that start?
so the run clubs are part of like an ecosystem down here in South Florida, and not just my ecosystem, but the running ecosystem, which is I think a necessary component of running in your city for it to amplify what running's all about. I think you need all these components. You need your running stores. You need your big city race, or at least your hometown race. You need some 5Ks to sort of maintain and give people some in between racing experience. And then you need I think these training groups or these running clubs, and that's where we came in almost 12 years ago. And not that there wasn't running clubs here. In fact, there was some really good ones, but we came in and kind of gave it a newness to it, a little less about the running. It wasn't short shorts and high socks, although I think those things are coming back. It really was just about people. It wasn't about the running, and we did that beginning in 2009 with Nike as a partner and Baptist Health as another supporting partner. We started on South Beach, and that what we call the original run club. That club sort of just gave everybody the idea that running could exist in that form, and now you've got running clubs and running crews all over the city, and we look like a mature running town, and these sort of tribes, because everyone tribes up, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone finds more or less where they assimilate and sort of associate best with. And we did the second one in Brickell, and Brickell became quickly, because of the density there and the way we formatted the groups being so open. They're free and they're open to anyone, any pace, any level. That one became what we consider one of the world's largest free weekly run clubs, with nights averaging 600 people, 300 people, 400 people, rain or shine. And this then spawned a few others in a few other neighborhoods: Weston, Gables, Homestead, West Kendall. These, for those who don't know, these are all sort of neighborhoods or cities of their own right in the South Florida area. And on a weekly basis, the Baptist Health run clubs probably see anywhere from 500 to 800 people weekly, and that's free, no strings attached. We don't ask you for anything but a waiver. In fact, we give stuff to you every week, free bottles of water, core exercise, pacer-led, certain special sort of monthly gatherings we do in some of the neighborhood businesses, and never have asked anybody a dime. Never have asked anybody for a dime. Never said, hey, there's a membership fee, or there's some sort of, we're going to dupe you a bit here and charge you for something. We don't. A lot of giveaways, and the idea behind that was that it was going to be something that was part of the community's fabric forever, and the consistency of it. You can always find us there. I mean, minus COVID times, no matter what. I mean, even hurricane warning. Hurricane is approaching the coast, and we're still putting on Instagram, hey, we'll see you there. As long as it's relatively safe, you're going to see us there. And we've been doing this now for about last 12 years or so, 12, 13 years. So it's been a nice ride, and I know that this isn't entirely unique to the world. I mean, there's run crews and run clubs around the country, but Miami, for whatever reason, those that are familiar with our culture here, we're very trendy, and we think we're trendy, but we're very transient. So people come and go, and things start up and shut down, and businesses open, close, something's cool for a while, then it goes away. Well, running clubs or run clubs haven't been the case.
Well, it's because of you, Frankie, man. I mean, you love 305 so much. No, I've been part of a lot of run clubs in different cities, and yeah, a lot of them times they are like a fad, or they fade over time as like the founder, who is super passionate, leaves town or goes somewhere else. Yeah. So, I think one of the secrets is like your consistency and your passion for 305. I think, yeah, I mean, I would love to see what we have here in every city, and I don't really know I think it's totally possible, right? So like, what would you say, I guess here, like, I think having like an organization that kind of takes leadership and ownership of having it available, like you do that, and then Nike also. I think brands like Nike, Reebok, other brands could take more of a leadership role in saying, hey, we're gonna safeguard that these huge run clubs are available in communities, that we have Nike stores.
Yeah.
You know, like
Look,
they should be everywhere.
Say what you will about big business or big shoe companies, but Nike has been amazing to our community here in South Florida. They, folks may not see this as a major media market or a New York or Chicago, but I think Nike has shown all the importance to this city and to this community, and they deserve a lot of credit for it. It's been, like I said, 12 plus years where they've supported financially, because one of the secrets to our sort of success is that these Pacers, although they do it out of passion, they get some compensation for their work and their time.
They're being paid while they're there.
Yeah.
So shout out King Richard.
Yeah,
Yeah, great,
right.
and they're bringing the speakers and the passion, and
Yeah.
you can, I mean, extra joy from, it's like their job, so like
Right.
they can have extra joy because they know they're being paid. You know?
Right, and it had to be set up that way if we were going to keep it free for the runners, right? Like if the companies that are out there like Nike and Baptist Health and some of the others that we picked up along the way hadn't been there, either the club would go away or we'd be charging people that might not necessarily be able to afford it. And that's what's really cool. So one thing I will say about some of the other cities I visited, one thing the running clubs end up doing is that they almost become, I don't want to say economic status is only of one layer, but some of these clubs, because they pop up in some of these neighborhoods, that they end up becoming almost exclusive to that neighborhood. What the cool thing about Miami and the fact that none of these clubs charge anything is that we can have tonight, for instance, Tuesday nights are the Brickell Run Club. There's folks that drive in from some of the poorest places in our community. There are folks that just landed in Miami and are just trying to experience, or like you said, you're like make friends here in the city. And there's this giant just collision in a very friendly manner of all kinds of people. Like we got wheelchairs out there, which is one of the coolest things to see when you see this inclusive nature of running. It really is the most democratic sport at play at that point. Like you can see it, you can touch it, you can feel it, and that's an awesome thing in a city that can do this 365 days a year. We got hit with one hurricane.
That's right.
All bits are about. That's
when you get off the horse, it's like some of these other cities. It's tough during winter to keep it up, the momentum. So we have that.
You have an obligation, and like it's like get off the phone or get
hurricane.
off.
We got to run through the
watching
hurricanes
the TV.
too,
Just go out there and run. Yeah, man.
Have you run through a hurricane before?
I have actually. Not through a hurricane, but we hung in here for a hurricane. I think it was Irma. We hunkered down and we went running down Biscayne Boulevard. I still have video of it, like where there wasn't a car. It was almost like the COVID time, right? No cars, nothing out there. And it was a few hours before the storm hit, but eventually hit my house. 3 feet of water inside my house. But
just gotta wait for the eye to roll around.
That's right, and then you go out for a good quick 30 and come back in. Yeah.
Well, that's great, man. I think the future is more cities having what we have. So we're like almost like a landmark city, And speaking of that, so I think I did see you were nominated the Miami Chief Wellness Officer by Francis Suarez. So I know that you said there might be some videos with Francis. I think he might be coming to some runs here.
Yeah.
But are there any metrics that you really look at in terms of in Miami, like a way you can kind of quantify? Like, is there any goals, in terms of like Miami wellness and how to improve it?
Look, we still rank at the bottom for a lot of things. There's prevalence of diabetes in our community. We're just going over some of those stats. Heart disease is still a big issue here. I don't think COVID did us any favors when it came to that. Maybe it shed some light on the need for health and fitness, but a lot of folks just kind of became more sedentary. Now they're not even getting in their car to go to work, right? But as far as specific metrics, that I mean, a lot of it is observant and just kind of looking at what has happened throughout the years. I do think we're a little more outdoor active. we're seeing some of the pedestrian counts on some of these recreational corridors like the Rickenbacker and Bayshore have some higher counts. Races, obviously, that's another metric, like how's participation in some of these from locals, that I'd like to see that up a bit more. We are going to spend a little more time in the schools. That's been a big focus of mine. Kids Run Miami is one initiative that we took on years ago, but I think we're in need to influence the youth of our community in terms of exercise a bit further than we are right now. I mean, you have middle schools that don't have PE. You have facilities that are, in disrepair, and there's parks that still are not as inviting as they should be. So these are all things that where I'm trying my best to, with hopefully some other enthusiasts and advocates, to influence. One big thing I'd like to see changed here is I'd like to see our schoolyards open all year long as park space. I think that's a big miss for us. A lot of these schools exist in communities where there isn't a park within 10 minutes. And so, that open up your basketball courts, open up your fields, let the neighborhood walk their dog even. I mean, whatever, and pick up after yourself. But go out and recreate in our school yards. That's something that I'd like to see change here. And then the other thing I'd say, and this is to Francis's credit, is make sure that our elected officials and our leaders are setting the right example themselves. I think we have, this I may call out some elected officials or some public officials out there where they were saying go put on your mask, but they themselves, weren't doing anything to make themselves healthier, right? And I think that using someone like Francis that is exercising regularly, eats well, and promotes physical activity, I think some of our other elected officials kind of need to take note of that and do it themselves. Ultimately, when you're elected, you should be an example of, all those things.
Yeah. I always thought fun would be I would love to be in charge of doing more surveys of Miami residents, and seeing who hasn't exercised in the past 2 weeks, and maybe give them some tips or a free membership to somewhere, or tell them to come to Nike. I mean, these groups at Nike are so enormous. Do you have any idea of there's still a lot of growth potential, I feel, in greater Miami. I mean, do you have any visions of what it might look like 10 years from now? Will there be 2 runs in South Beach every week? Because I know we're getting really big size.
No, man. These groups, I've kept them at 8 for now, just because my own physical bandwidth. But what I hope that these groups spawn is sort of subgroups. I like to say these groups are made up of all groups, right? It's kind of like the United Nations of running here in South Florida. And from there, hopefully these subgroups where someone says, hey, you know what, you live down the street from me, hey, you work up the street from me, or you know what, we have more or less the same schedule, let's get 3 or 4 of us together and let's run on Sunday morning, and then maybe we'll do brunch. And these smaller groups can come from these 8 different run clubs we have now. I would love to have a run club in front of everyone's steps, but there's only so much what we could do. But if anyone's listening out there, there's nothing stopping you from starting your own run club. Be a run club of 1 at first.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a story actually. So I when Nike wasn't active, I was at first doing my Thursday run. I'm such a creature of routine. I do my Thursday run anyways, but I was doing it by myself for a while, and it was 5 mile or whatever. I'd talk to my sis after or whatever. But eventually I was running by the track, and I was finally I went to the track and I met Run Addict. And so Elliot was one of the first ones on the podcast, and that's a great try. But what came out of that was I actually started a heel up run on Sundays. So my favorite thing, Frankie, is to do a 6 mile run every Sunday morning. Kind of run off any Saturday feasting, you gotta have
feasting or party,
feasting, whatever, it's you gotta have the day of celebration and different Absolutely. Foods, make some mistakes with your food, whatever, and basically what came out of it was a 9 mile run, or no, 6 mile run. Sorry, and I put it on the app, but God, it's like there hasn't been many people checking out the app. Unfortunately, not as many who live in South Beach near there. So what it's turned into is that me and Greg, who's a big Nike run fan, Greg Romanesque, me and him go like best friends every Sunday morning. But like what I'm saying is I'm open to that group being a bit bigger. It does have a name to it, and I think that is something that I could see more people starting up their own little mini pods, you know. And what's cool about Run Addict is it does create an app where you have a chat for each run, right? So there could be a partnership here where it's like, hey guys, you guys love Nike. If you ever want to organize another run in the week, you can use Run Addict, talk with Elliot, and then you can host it. So I think I'll never forget when when the run club started back up in South Beach, and you took us straight down to the track right in front of Elliot, and you go, "We run my." It's like, that's just like that. That's like that fun rivalry that is beautiful. But like, what's brilliant is I think I love you guys both to death, so I have to go alternate sometimes and go to both.
You go.
But what I'm saying is I think there's room here for these other mini pods forming.
100%.
Because my Sunday morning run does not appeal to a lot of people who can or don't live near me, right? Because like I think that would be my dream if you ever came to one of my Sunday morning runs. But I don't think you live so far away.
You gotta dream bigger than that.
It's just
man.
not real.
You gotta dream bigger than that.
I'm just not sure how realistic it is. So I think locally more pods forming around these big weekly events. I think that's where a lot of growth can happen here in Miami. And
Agreed. No, I mean Elliot, he took it and ran with it, so to speak. And during COVID, I think he did what I think needed to be done, which is kind of take ownership over inviting folks to run with him, and all the credit to him and the group he's got going. I've sent him a few runners that want to be coached or want a little more structure. Which for those that don't know, like basically the run clubs there's some structure to it, but we're not necessarily training for something specific. You're not, you may come to me and have a conversation about being faster in the 5K, and I'll help you out, but it's not specifically geared towards performance. It's rather a shared, exercise experience that you can do your midweek maintenance run. You can do, heck, you might be pushed, but don't get me wrong, there's some fast guys and girls out there, but it's not structured to be coached, so to speak.
Right, it's more of a social event, which is necessary and a huge part of my week. Speaking of, all right, some last tips for coaching wise. So 10 state championships coaching the Belen High School cross country.
I'm only going to correct you, not because of me, but because of the kids who've earned this stuff. But we have 13 total, 12 under myself as a coach. But that's what I love doing, man. I love coaching the kids to win.
What's your secret to that kind of performance?
I mean, I wish it was just one thing, but I would say that at the high school level, the secret really is getting them to focus on actual running, like actually putting the time into the running. That gets you to a certain level. That from there, I don't want to say it's enough, but that right there puts you in sort of a cloud of your own. And that's one thing we've done. We just make sure that they're putting in the time. They're running 6 days, sometimes 7 days a week. They're running for all 4 years, and then some of them even before that for middle school. So it's a long-term plan, but it's just putting in the time, and like that's the secret. The secret isn't a specific workout or a specific shoe or certain the food they eat. All those things play a factor, but it really boils down to just put in the time.
Discipline. I mean, sometimes it's tough love or tough forcing or tough, pushing. So do you, Greg actually had a question for you. Is like, as a leader, do you prefer to be liked or to be feared? Or occasionally do you leverage fear, or do you leverage kind of being tough on people?
I treat the adults differently than I treat my high school kids. I sometimes try to treat the adults like kids, but I much rather treat the high school kids like adults. That's probably better. You're better off doing that, expecting more from them than just what you might expect from a typical teenager. But to that question, I don't know. I don't want to be feared, although for some reason I have a natural frown, so people think that I'm mad all the time, which it's just I don't know how to fix it. I'm hoping that my son or my daughter doesn't get the same. But no, I don't want to ever lead by fear of anything. No, I prefer to be respected and have credibility and yeah, I don't want to be feared.
No. That's what I told Greg. I was like, yeah, man, no one wants to be feared, but if you ever feel not respected, you kind of got to bring down the hammer a little bit.
Oh yeah,
you know
no. Listen, I my workouts out there, you're gonna hear me yelling and screaming. I'm that coach. You know, I do like to come out of a workout knowing that I gave back to that work. Like I was part of the energy of that workout, and if not, I'm gonna let you know otherwise that it just wasn't going according to plan. I almost want to sweat as much as the athlete is, and part of that entails some yelling and screaming and some motivated words and so forth. But my style is probably somewhere in the middle. I'm not the crazy coach throwing clipboards, but I am, and I'm not the quiet, just do your thing coach. I'm kind of in the middle, and there are practices where I'm just like, I may run next to them for 100 yards screaming and shouting at them.
That does a lot.
So, yeah.
So we got a few minutes left. Is there any morning habit or any kind of habit that makes you unique, you think, that you can share?
I mean, right now I don't feel like I have any habits with my kids, but I normally just like to open the door and stand outside. Like, if I could, I would live outside. Like, I love being outside. I love open curtains. I like to see my front door neighbors. I like to see what's happening in front of my street. So that's just like a weird morning habit. Just knowing. I don't like to sleep, right? Like I like to think of myself as the last one to go to sleep, and more or less the first one to wake up. I don't like to really be up before the sun comes up, but right when it comes up, like daylight. All right, I want to see the world happening. I want to see the world, moving. I want to see people on bikes. I want to see people walking. I want to see the car drive by. Like all those things to me, part of getting my morning started. So
yeah, it's powerful, man.
And always an orange. I always like to drink one glass of orange juice. That is
every morning.
A weird thing. Yeah, just love.
Any specific brand you have now?
I mean, I don't want to endorse it, but I think Trader Joe's. The Trader Joe's organic, whatever. I forget the name of it. It's just OJ. That one's awesome. Natalie's obviously expensive, but it's awesome too. Yeah, both of those. I always, and I can tell when it's a cheap OJ or watered down OJ. So make sure.
It better be the good stuff. So you also live you work right here near Trader Joe's. What is Lifetime, by the way? If maybe in 10 seconds.
So Lifetime is the company that bought the Miami Marathon from me, and it's been 8 years, I think. And so now I work with and for Lifetime. Lifetime is one of the largest health club operators in the country. They also have Lifetime Living, Lifetime Work. They've got 160 plus clubs around the country. They have these athletic resorts, which is where we're sitting right now, and one of these is in the Gables, which involves you can rent a place here and live here, and you can rent a place and work here, and you can also get a membership and work out here. And I think one of the more unique companies that sort of flies under the radar, at least in South Florida, does, but it's getting there. They're going to be opening up a second location in the Falls area, and just a health and fitness lifestyle-driven company that also happens to have a portfolio of running and fitness and endurance events. One of those is the Miami Marathon, New York City Triathlon, Chicago Half Marathon, Chicago Triathlon. There's the Leadville Bike Series, the Leadville Running Series. I mean, there's a plethora of iconic in endurance events, and we're just a small part of this. We have our athletics event office here with a staff of about 5 people that are dedicated all year long to producing the Turkey Trot, the Miami Marathon, the 305 Half, as well as some of these other events around the country.
Awesome, man. Yeah, and on that note, here in Miami, are there any? I always ask kind of like ideas for any like local businesses that you love, restaurants, anything that you take the fam to. That's kind of like Frankie's spot.
Man, I guess maybe it's a runner in me, but I can eat at the same spot almost every day, right? Like so don't look don't look at me for like.
It sounds. What is your spot?
Foodie.
Hey, I'm a very loyal person too. But I'm
Yeah.
saying I'm loyal to like a couple spots in my
Yeah,
week.
man.
Where do you go?
So look, national chain wise, I'll do the Chipotle.
Chipotle?
thing. I think you can't really go wrong. Well, I take that back. Some of the Chipotles can be a little inconsistent, but there's a couple that do it right. Besides that, I like Lime. Another sort of national chain, but it started here in South Florida, so I enjoy Lime on South Beach. Picadillo, which is actually here in the Gables, is good stuff. We do that often. And then for dinner, my favorite restaurant's an old school restaurant called OG. It's in up near you. It's in North Bay Village, so on the kind of north end of the beach. And that Italian restaurant's probably one of the best Italian restaurants in the city. I've been doing that for a long time, so I enjoy that. And then go-to is always Joe's Stone Crab. You just kind of want to, at the takeout there, just have a good afternoon with the family, so I like that as well. So.
Awesome.
I like key lime pie. That's why.
Oh, they have one of the best. I'll say I was impressed by that one. Do you have for running fuel for marathons? Do you pre-fuel the night before, or do you do all like the GUIs?
I think I learned this from my wife, who's a sports dietitian. I used to think of it as only a one night prep, but I think if you kind of have an understanding of your sort of your body and how it fuels, you can start to kind of carb up a couple days prior to, even 3 days out even. So you don't have to completely slam yourself the night before if it's a marathon or a triathlon or something like that. So I do like to start thinking about adding a few extra carbs to the plate 72 hours out. And just start watching, make sure staying away from the sodas and anything that's just going to give you either upset stomach or just too many highs and lows too quickly. I'm a whole wheat kind of guy, so I don't need to. I think one of the cool things about being into whole grains and so forth is that you don't need to have a lot of it to feel satisfied. That's one other little trick. I think some folks overdo it.
So whole wheat pasta kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm a whole wheat pasta guy all the time, as much as possible.
Awesome.
Or as often as possible, even when I'm not gonna race. Just like it. Awesome. I'm used to that. Feels like it tastes like something.
Yeah. So last question: Who's a fun character in Miami who would be fun for the podcast?
Fun character in Miami would be fun for the podcast. Man, there's a lot. Mo at Sneaker Impact would be interesting. A long-time Miamian. He's someone I've gotten to know this past year. Has a huge heart. Has his head in the right place when it comes to the environment. Is a socially responsible business owner, and is, I don't know, a friend right now in the running community. And he's been in Little Haiti for years. Has a beautiful working staff that he's nurtured throughout the years. Someone cool and interesting, like not a name you see in the newspaper, but probably a story that deserves to be in the paper.
Right. No, that's what it's all about, man. Local voices, the grassroots characters who make this town. And
that's right.
Thank you for making Miami one of the best running cities in the world.
Thank you for
big hug,
being
man.
part of it, man.
I'll see
Thank
you
for
tonight.
for tracking me down. Yeah, we'll see you at Run Club.
Yeah, awesome. I can't get enough of these Nike Run Clubs. So
awesome, man.
Appreciate you. There we go.
It recorded? All right, good.
Yeah, we're all set.